Hi, my name is Mike Kozminski. Welcome to episode 59 of Boro Tailgate Talks. We have a loaded show for you today, but I would like to start off by saying some very nice things about the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos is one of my favorite teams. They are so talented from top to bottom, starting with their leader, QB1, the man, the myth, the legend, Russell Wilson. Then, how could I forget their head coach, Sean Payton, legendary head coach, who coached Drew Brees, and has won a Super Bowl. Looking at the rest of the roster names, the guys that stick out to me is running back Javonte Williams, wide receiver Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver Cortland Sutton, pitman Lucas Krull. I'm sure he sees the field a lot. Defensive tackle DJ Jones, quarterback Pat Sutton II. Safety, Justin Simmons. I have no doubt looking at their schedule for the rest of the year after their bye week, they will win out the rest of the season and make the postseason. Thank you. Now, I will fix Alex's wide shot camera or I will get fined. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to make this very clear as I try to twist this so then the camera does not fall. I know the rules when I lose to Alex. So, yes, the host today is Alex.
All right, let's get the show started on the wide. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing another special guest. It's been absolutely incredible the amount of guests we've been able to have on this show. Erie News Now, correct?
Correct.
What's the name of your show?
The Critical Eye.
The Critical Eye.
That's a good name.
Erie News Now, on the CW, local television, Isaac Petkac.
Thanks for having me, guys. This is
Thanks
pretty
for coming
neat.
on.
I'm sorry I didn't wear the jersey. I couldn't make it the trifecta. Although I feel like, Mike, you're wearing the jersey of the guy who's actually been performing with Pittsburgh.
Yeah, this guy
Alex, you're a little off the rocker there, but I give you both credit. We have to trade to the host here.
Yeah. Well, it's another loaded show today. Got a lot of stuff to talk about. It's going to be interesting. Do we want to start with, I just wrote stuff down randomly.
Before I forget, and we're going to end the show today with Athlete Spotlight 2 with the goalie, Kaylee Lauriel.
There you go.
Hopefully she does not, I was going to say, I better get that right or she would roast me for saying her last name incorrectly. But yes, that'll be at the end of the show, so stick around. So what do you want to start with?
I know you want to rant about Pitt.
I really do.
Go ahead. I'll let you rant about Pitt, and then we'll get into the other college stuff.
So Isaac, you want to go ahead and read the score I have right here? They played.
Yeah, I think if I read that correctly, it's a 58 for Notre Dame, 14th in the country, by the way. Pitt 7. They did get on the board late in the game.
They did.
So there's that.
Yes.
That's tough. That is tough.
I'm gonna make this clear. We don't like to yell too often on this show. We don't like to blow out the mics.
But you have to go high register on occasion.
We don't like to slam anything. But in this case.
Yeah.
Pat Narduzzi needs to be fired.
You know what? While you're ranting, I'm going to put some light on you.
What was this? I'm going to not cover Isaac's face. What was this? Christian Valeu was 14 for 29, 127 yards, 4, count them, 4, Alex, 4,
You did my thing.
Joe, 4 interceptions. 4. That's bad.
That's pretty terrible.
I don't care if they're the number 14 team in the country, guys. 4 interceptions in a game is terrible. You can't do that.
It probably would have been 6 with Phil, but, you know.
Probably.
Well, I think the interesting thing with Pitt, and Mike, I totally understand your frustration here. Number one, you look at Notre Dame, and I think they're a much better team than number 14 in the country. Their 2 losses this season was when they went through, remember, a gauntlet of ranked teams.
Right.
They lost to Ohio State, who now is sitting at 3rd in the country, and I know we're going to get to Alex's team in just a few minutes here. The loss to Louisville, which we saw last Saturday against Duke. That's not easy to play down there at that ACC school. And I think the issue with Pitt is this, and I know I see, Mike, on your sheet, you have the quote written down that Noah Hiles reported, some of which was taken out of context, some of which was accurate, but you hear Narduzzi after the game said, we lost a lot from last year and evidently haven't done a good job of replacing them. And I think the frustration with Narduzzi, as I think has been the frustration with a guy like James Franklin and the team that I root for in Penn State, is just the lack of accountability. I mean, you look at this team and you compare it to the team that everyone, my counterpart here to the right, Alex, is a fan of. You look at Ohio State, this is a team that lost significant offensive starters from last year. They're breaking in a new quarterback. Their defense, although a veteran defense, still had to replace 3 guys on the back end, and they're sitting at number 3. So,
Arguably the best defense in the country, by the way.
For sure.
Yes.
So when you look at college football, I've always viewed it as, in Division I, specifically the FBS, there are 3 tiers of programs. A good program, a great program, an elite program. And I think you look at the Alabamas, the Georgias, the Ohio States of the world, even throw in there for the last few years Clemson until they fell off a cliff. This year, Florida State. Those are the elite programs. And I think for a team like, say, Penn State, they've been on the verge of elite, haven't been able to get there. I don't think Pitt, though they may view themselves as a great program, I don't know if they're there yet.
No.
You look when they won the ACC, it was a weak conference. Clemson was down. They really didn't have to get through anyone significant outside of maybe Miami early in the season. So, to me, this loss isn't surprising. It's a road loss in South Bend. You're breaking in a new quarterback. Question's going to be asked about Pat Narduzzi. I mean, is he the guy? Is Michigan State calling his name? That's another question, too.
Yeah.
It's tough right there in the Steel City, but, I mean, you look at, we haven't replaced good players. Well, part of that's on recruiting. You have to be able to get guys from other states, not just in Pennsylvania. And the struggle right now for Pat is he just doesn't seem to be able to do that.
And I'll add on to that, too. They have not been able to replace Kenny Pickett. At all.
Not at all.
Since 2021. Yeah, I mean, I'll admit, I'll be a fair man. The ACC wasn't as strong as like the SEC or the Big Ten. But even with the numbers Kenny Pickett put on that year, Keenan Slovis, Phil Chikovic, Christian Vallejo, so far have not been able to touch Kenny Pickett. Though Christian has not been playing as that long, but you guys get what I'm saying. Like, nobody has been able to touch what Kenny Pickett did in 2021. Though it was one season, but you guys get what I'm trying to say.
Well, let me throw this out there too, Mike, and I don't want to play devil's advocate here, but I'm going to. I think the Kenny Pickett situation with Pitt was very similar to what you're seeing with USC and Caleb Williams this year. Kenny Pickett was a tremendous college quarterback. We all know that. He had that dual threat ability, I think even more so than he's showing in the pros right now, and the ability to run, pass, find the ball down the field. But can you name me 5 players on that team, outside of Kenny Pickett, that had a monster impact on the season that helped them win the ACC championship?
Jordan Addison.
I agree. The Addison's one.
Israel Bandicanda.
Okay. See how difficult it is?
Don't think MJ Devonshire was anything big at the time.
Don McMillan still hadn't transferred back home from Florida yet.
Right. And the wide receiver wise, I mean, he had Jared. I mean, Jared Wayne was a target, but like he wasn't like Jordan Addison level.
So my point is this: you can't name a multitude of guys outside of Addison who were dynamic, transcendent level talents. And I think Pickett masked a lot of that. And you're seeing that this year with a team like USC. Caleb Williams for 5 games let the Trojans run wild. I think he masked a lot of the concerns on defense specifically. But now you look at the Trojans now, but it's not just the defense. The offensive line for USC is 121st in the country in sacks allowed this year. Caleb Williams, up until last week, and forgive me, I don't know the number of times he was pressured last week in their game. But up until last week, the last 4 games that preceded it, ending with the Notre Dame loss a couple of weeks ago, he had been pressured 57 times in 4 weeks.
Yeah.
The next highest quarterback was sitting at 41. And so I make the comparison to say, I don't know if quarterback is the main concern for Pitt. I agree Kenny Pickett was head and shoulders above where VU is right now with the Panthers. But there are just not a lot of skill positions with this Pitt team that have had or are currently having the success. And I think we saw Pickett mask a lot of the concerns a couple of years ago, and we're seeing now the fruits of the labor that Pitt didn't have come to fruition in 2023.
Right, and here's the thing too: they could have a very good, one of those very good high top players in Gavin Bartholomew, if they threw to him. They just don't. I don't know why. He could be a very good tight end in the NFL in the future. That is why, and I'll get back to the quote in a second. But Gavin Bartholomew, he retweeted about the Narduzzi quote. So, and I'm going to say this right now: I would not be surprised if Bartholomew leaves this year. And I'm not talking for the NFL. I'm talking transfers.
Yeah.
I would not be.
Transfers out and plays his senior year somewhere else.
And then gets drafted decently high.
Truly, people don't understand. Gavin Bartholomew could easily be a top 3 tight end in whatever class he ends up being drafted.
Right. And Pitt just does not use him.
Very easily could be.
Does not use him. Now, before I move on to, I'll move on. I'll read some stats here in a second. But I've said this before, and I'll see if you agree with it. Do you think that Pitt was, quote unquote, spoiled with Kenny Pickett and Jordan Addison in 2021?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, every team has a year like this at some point, whether it's Pitt, trying to rack my brain. I mean, I don't want to talk about the top tier echelon teams.
Right.
UCF in 2017 with that team that they had in the strength and the coach that they had with Scott Frost before he left for Nebraska and how successful they were. I mean, every so often you get a team that is just going to run the table because they have the talent, they have the skill position players. I just revert back to my point with, sometimes a quarterback, whether this is the NFL, whether this is college. I mean, we're seeing this a lot now with USC in college. We're also seeing it a lot with San Francisco in the NFL. I think the problem is that, sometimes having a great quarterback can mask a lot of the issues that you have. And I think with Pitt, that was the case in 2021. And on the contrary, as is the case with the team now, not that I think they're very talented at certain skill positions, but with the 49ers, not having a tremendous quarterback can make a very talented team look anemic. I mean, I go back to Penn State in the college level. I mean, Drew Aller was the number 1 recruited quarterback in the class of 2022. And whether it's that they haven't allowed him to do anything, whether it's that he's just not it, Penn State's sitting at 6-1, and they should probably be, or 7-1 rather, and they should probably be worse than that based on the way he's playing. So, I think you got to take a good hard look in the mirror if you're Narduzzi, and you have to ask yourself the question: are we a great program yet, or are we a good program, or an average program that got bailed out by a good quarterback? And I think realistically, when you look into the mirror, it's probably average to on the verge of good.
And honestly, last year with Pitt, it was more of just like, I guess, the good players that left that they couldn't replace with Israel Bandakanda, Servassier Dennis, Carter Warren at the line. Like, those guys, they bailed us out. They bailed us out.
Really helped too. Kenny had a really big offensive line last year.
He did. But looking at the stats real quick, I mean, the touchdown did not come from Vallejo. It came from Nate Yarnell, who
Yeah,
was
maybe
2 for 3, 75 yards. Rodney Hammond carried the ball 6 times for 31 yards. Sibo Fleminster got the ball 8 times for about 24. And then Sam Hartman was 18 for 25 for 288. He did throw 2 picks and did not throw any touchdowns, which is surprising.
Surprising. I assume Audric Estime just carried the ball like 50 times.
19 for like 114, 3 touchdowns. Yeah. But yeah, just like the quote Isaac said via Twitter, there's some Pitt players that aren't too happy, and I think the both of you can agree with me. If you lose the locker room, you're screwed. You're screwed.
You're in trouble if you lose the locker room.
You're screwed. Daniel Carter said, wow, Gavin Bartholomew did the 5 dots. And then also tweeted Rodney Hammond, I don't have the tweet. And then MJ Devonshire said something too. Yeah, if you lose the locker room, not good.
I mean, you look to this year, what a great opportunity it would have been for Pitt. The ACC not nearly as high as it was in previous years.
Right.
Talked about Clemson being down. We know Florida State's in the top 10 and undefeated in a playoff position, but you look at North Carolina, they just lost again this past weekend. They're likely going to drop out of the top 25. Miami, after that excruciatingly terrible coaching decision in that game against Georgia Tech, they have no shot at the playoffs after they lose that game. So, I mean, it's not like we're playing in, let's say this year, the Big Ten, where you have 3 teams that are ranked in the top 10, or a team like a conference,
in the same division,
right?
By the way,
or a conference like the Pac-12, who looks like they could realistically have a shot at 2 teams in the playoff, with the way Oregon looked like last week against Utah, in their win there against the Utes, in Washington, of course, being undefeated. So, you look at a conference like the ACC, and it's a missed opportunity for Pitt. And I think it's a struggle right now for the Panthers, and the fact that they just don't have the bodies, they don't have the athletes to be able to compete with the rest of this conference. And I think it's going to be even more concerning when the playoff field expands to 12 teams, because there's then more room for error. So if you can't get to that playoff space with a now 12-team bracket, it's going to create more pressure on Narduzzi. So we'll see. You got to finish out the season strong. Bowl game not looking likely at this point, sitting at 2-6. But maybe Pat can right the ship. But this year, certainly the ship has sailed.
I do think that Christian Valeu is the guy for now. Not saying he's going to be like any good, but like I feel like for the quarterback position at least, I think they're going to stick with him for
by far
now.
the most talented quarterback on the roster at the moment.
He's
the best possible option of what we have right now.
Exactly. And that's all we got. And Pitt's next game Saturday is at home against Florida State.
Yikes. Best case scenario, they go 3-1 and finish the season 5-7.
I'd take that. 2017 when they upset Miami, and I was at that game too when they upset Miami in 2017. Yeah. I mean, they finished 5-7. So yeah, we'll see. But real quick, I will say this. Alex and I have done some fair ranting about Penn State, and since you're a Penn State guy, we got to ask: is it fair for us to say almost every year that they just cannot? Once it gets to Ohio State and Michigan, it's just they cannot get over that hump.
I would say now it's certainly fair, and I think the most frustrating thing for me watching the game last week against Ohio State, and even watching last Saturday against Indiana, in the tire fire that was the first 3 quarters. I think there's something about James Franklin that is concerning to me, because he never seems to want to take that next step. You look at the game against Ohio State, and I watch it, listen to a few podcasts, watch a few shows. And there were a couple of shows that talked about Ohio State having an out pitch, in that they had a guy in Marvin Harrison Jr. who, when the going got tough, they knew they could throw him the ball in single, double, or triple coverage, and he would come up with a catch. Yeah. Penn State hasn't been able to find that yet. And I think the thing that concerned me the most was Drew Aller in the game in Columbus didn't get an opportunity to throw the ball deep. Now, Corey Geiger of DK Pittsburgh Sports a couple weeks ago asked James a question that went viral, about basically, why don't you let your quarterback chuck the ball deep? And, of course, elicited the response from Franklin of, you're speaking Japanese to me, we would never do that. But I think Corey had a point in the fact that, James even said after the game Saturday against Indiana that Drew's been a great game manager for us. And, that's all well and good if you have the talent around him to let that happen. But you look at the receivers, this Penn State team, they don't have the talent. I mean, their biggest talent is in the running back position with Nick Singleton, Kadron Allen, but receiving, they just don't have that ability. Now, I do like the touchdown that Aller threw, the 57-yarder to beat Indiana late in the fourth quarter on Saturday. But the concern I have with Penn State now coming up with Michigan in 2 weeks and even on the road in Maryland coming up next Saturday is, can you compete with a team that has depth? And Michigan has depth, and Ohio State clearly has depth, even with guys like Ibuka and Henderson who didn't play in that game 2 weeks ago. Penn State's in a very similar position as Pitt. They're a great program. They're better than Pitt, but they're not elite yet. And the questions are going to start spiraling. James Franklin has not won a game on the road against a top 10 team in his entire career at Penn State. And
he's won one against the top 10 ever, and that was 2016 Ohio State
right.
whiteout.
Right. And so the concern that you have now is he ever going to get to a point where he can beat these teams? And I'm not sure this year is the year. I don't know if next year is the year. And if so, next year will be the best team you've ever had. Most of these starters come back. Expectations are a little bit different at Penn State than Pitt because of the way the Nittany Lions have been able to perform, specifically their Rose Bowl victory last year.
Right.
But it's still concerning because you have those teams in your own division.
Right. Now, before we get to Ohio State in a second, I will say this. So say Penn State loses to Michigan, which most likely, unfortunately, for you guys, most likely will probably happen, knowing the track record.
Correct.
If next year, once again, it happens where they cannot beat Ohio State and Michigan, do you let James Franklin go?
Well, I mean, who else are you going to get? That's really
true.
my
That's
question.
the problem,
Is who else are you going to get? You're not going to convince Lincoln Riley to come from USC. You're not going to convince Jim Harbaugh to leave Michigan to go to the NFL maybe next year and then to come to Penn State.
Right.
I would love to potentially see Manny Diaz get a shot at a head coaching position again.
Yep.
And he would be the one guy who I would say, all right, he's already on your staff. You can see how he was able to resurrect the defense, specifically in the last 2 years, and how well that defense has been playing for Penn State. They're top 5 in nearly every statistical category. But really, who else? I mean, the defense has not been the problem for this program the last couple of years against Michigan and Ohio State. It's been the offense. It's been guys like Drew Aller who haven't been given the opportunity or don't have the ability to be able to throw the ball down the field with the Buckeyes. I mean, 20 points is all they gave up against Ohio State. If you're telling me that offense with the number 1 ranked prospect 2 years ago as a quarterback can't score 21 in Columbus, that's concerning. So I think Manny Diaz would be the only guy, but you're not gonna. They just recently signed him to a 10-year extension. He's not going anywhere, and Penn State fans have to be okay with that.
Yeah, if all things go right, I hear a man that used to coach the University of Pittsburgh might be available for next year.
Penn State doesn't want him, I can tell you that much.
I wouldn't want him either. But Alex, you can go ahead and start with Ohio State.
All right, continuing on the track of Big Ten football, Ohio State played at Wisconsin on Saturday, prime time, 7:30 p.m., and won 24-10. Biggest takeaway from this game, this was the perfect time for Kyle McCord to have his first bad game as the Buckeyes quarterback. Didn't do terrible. He just threw 2 picks. 17 for 26, 226, 2 touchdowns. Not terrible. 2 picks just makes it look worse. Travion Henderson had a massive game coming back off, I believe it was a lingering ankle thing or something like that. 24 for 162 and a touchdown. He played fantastic. And that's genuinely, this is a really good sign because I'm sure you saw it last year. You probably saw it, especially because Penn State played Ohio State. After the bye last year, Ohio State looked really, really bad for a couple weeks. They played really bad for about 3 quarters against Penn State. They only beat Northwestern like 21-7. Like they barely hung on to win that game. They struggled for a large portion of the game against Maryland last year. They played really bad coming out of the bye. This team has come out of the bye this year and played really well. They blew out Purdue. They blew out Maryland. They beat Penn State in Columbus like they needed to. And then they went on the road and handled business. Despite 3 total turnovers, there was a fumble loss as well. And the offensive line is finally starting to play well. We haven't had, I don't know if we've had a 150-yard rusher the entire season so far. Travion comes out in his first game off injury, goes for 162. Like I said, Marvin Harrison is also incredible. We've talked about him, 6 for 123 in both of McCord's passing touchdowns. Defense, again, is still probably one of the best in the country. 259 total yards, 165 pass, 94 rush. 6 for 16 on 3rd down is pretty good defensively. Held them to 0 for 2 on 4th, and they forced fumble and recovered it. So bad game for McCord. First bad game as Ohio State's quarterback, but again, continues to prove the narrative, especially these past 2 weeks after beating Penn State and now beating Wisconsin. We can apparently win despite of the offense, which is not the trend for Ohio State over the past couple of years, but this team is very different than the past couple of years. Focused on running the ball, finally, running well. The defense is playing out of their minds, and I think if Brian Hartline and Ryan Day really start to trust Kyle McCord in these big situations, especially after beating top 10 teams in Notre Dame and Penn State, you gotta start opening up the playbook. And I think once they start doing that, letting Marv ball, you got Emeka Ibuka back from injury, Travion Henderson's back from injury. You've got Julian Fleming, who's been very disappointing based on the way he was recruited and his status coming out of high school, but still very solid. You got a lot of talent on this team. Obviously, it's wide receiver U up there with LSU right now. So, great time for them to have one bad game and adjust. So, keep rolling. That's all I gotta say. You got to keep rolling, and it's not going to get any easier having to walk into Teton to end the season. So you just got to keep going, and hopefully Kyle McCord keeps balling.
Yeah, there we go. So I can go through the NBA stuff real quick if you guys want to end on NFL and.
I have Boro too. If we want
then we can after I do Atlanta, and then you do Boro, and then we can do NFL, hockey, and then we'll cut it to. Athlete Spotlight, but real quick, the
question topic today.
Oh, that's right.
We have a question.
Yep.
Topic.
And honestly, we can go as long as we want. I don't care. Yeah. World Series, I like it this year. It's two different teams. It's the Rangers and the Diamondbacks. Right now, as of this recording, the series I believe is 1-1. I haven't really been able.
1-1.
Yep, I have not really been able.
Are you one of those people who has DirecTV and Fox still is out for you?
I do not have DirecTV. I have Spectrum. Yeah, Spectrum. But.
Any good pirating websites out there, guys, let me know.
I know a few. I'll tell you after. I can tell you after. But real quick about the World Series. The Rangers, I believe it was a few years ago, lost 100 games.
2 years ago.
Was it 2 years ago? The Diamondbacks, did they lose 100 games, or was it they were at least below 500 the last year or two?
Yeah, they haven't been above 500, I think, since 2018 when they made the playoffs.
So this goes to show you it should not take almost 5 years, 6 years to rebuild a team to make it to the World Series. The Pirates. Look at the Rangers and the Diamondbacks. It could be done. Now, I do think in 2024 the Pirates have a chance to at least compete for a postseason spot. It all depends on pitching. It all depends if Brian Reynolds can stay consistent and keep Brian Hayes, who I believe will win a Gold Glove this year, since Arenado does not have the finalist finally this year. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got with the with that. Do you got any thoughts about the World Series this year?
I love it. As a guy who grew up in a small market town, as did you two, and grew up as a Pirates fan and a Tigers fan too, watching the Seawolves play. I love the idea of parity in Major League Baseball, and I think what's funny is that you have two teams that have done this rebuild differently. You look first at the Texas Rangers, and they are your traditional hit the home run, play great defense, and have great pitching team. Remember, this was a team that acquired Jacob deGrom. He hasn't played all year. He's been hurt. I mean, this guy has been out of the lineup for significant amounts of time. So you look at the way their bullpen's been able to perform in the playoffs. Of course, their starters with guys like Eovaldi and Scherzer, and the rest of the young pitching staff has been tremendous. And then, they've also picked up from the island of misfit toys. Adolis Garcia, who's likely going to be the playoff MVP and probably the World Series MVP if the Rangers end up winning it. He was a guy that was taken out of the Cardinals organization and traded away for pennies on the dollar. He was DFA'd by St. Louis. He was at one point released by the Rangers before they picked him back up. And so you look at the way Texas has been able to build with guys like Josh Young, with guys like Evan Carter, and the way that lineup's been constructed. You bring up guys like Corey Seager. They are really the definition of a big market rebuild, and the fact that you can bring in great pieces, you supplement them with a great prospect system, and then you pay some extra money to bring in the big names. And then you flip the script and you look at Arizona, and it's the exact opposite. I think that there has been no team in Major League Baseball this year that has done a better job constructing the roster around the new rules than the Arizona Diamondbacks. Number one, you look at the way they steal bases. Ketel Marte is a speedster around the diamond. He's so good at being able to run. This team is willing to play small ball. They bunt. They put balls in play. They hit base hits. Corbin Carroll, their best hitter, is not a home run guy. He's a singles and doubles guy. And so you look at the way that they've been able to build around the new pitch clock rules, the new stolen base rules, the new disengagement rule. And I think that their offense is built for 2023. Then you look at their pitching staff with Zach Gallen leading the way, and Kelly right there behind to be the number 2. And the bullpen, Paul Sewell, they bring in via trade, but it's been grassroots guys for the Diamondbacks. So I love it. To your point, Mike, with the Pirates, I think you can take a page out of the Diamondbacks playbook if you're Pittsburgh. I think this is a team in the Pirates that, with O'Neill Cruz healthy, have a chance to compete. The concern I have with Pittsburgh is, are there too many cooks in the kitchen? This is a team that has a lot of middle infielder prospects. In fact, I was talking with a couple guys in my station that are also Pirates fans, and I said, hey, would you consider trading Termar Johnson away for a premier player with the way that they have a lot of guys at different position players in the middle of the infield? So, you know, I think the Pirates are close. They're definitely in a better position that they've been. But, I mean, you look at the way this season went for Pittsburgh, and if they had won 2 more games a month, they'd be in the same boat the Diamondbacks were right now with a playoff spot. I mean, they'd be an 86, 88 win team. So it just goes to show it's the little things that get things done. And the Pirates, I don't think, are far off. But this World Series is awesome, and it's proved that way so far. Game 1 was great. The Diamondbacks' response in Game 2 was awesome. I can't wait to see what the Desert's going to be like tonight, that being Monday in Game number 3. And if it's anything like it was in 2001, which is really the first World Series that I grew up as a kid watching, it's going to be a heck of an environment for the next 3 games.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm going to try and speed through the Atlanta Hawks thing because I completely forgot that we got to get Alex out of here.
That's all right. We got 40 minutes.
Yeah, that's my bad. But real quick, so far, the Atlanta Hawks have only won 1 game. But they've only played 3, and there's a lot more games left, so it's fine. But Game 1, they lost to the Hornets 116 to 110. Jalen Johnson was actually the top scorer with 21 points and 7 rebounds. But for the Hornets, P.J. Washington had 28, and LaMelo Ball had 15, so good win for the Hornets. Game 2 against the Knicks, this one hurts my soul. Knowing Trae Young and the history of Trae Young and the Knicks, it hurts my soul. Jalen Brunson had 31 points, and R.J. Barrett had 26. But for the Hawks, DeAndre Hunter had 27. And though Trae Young had 18 points, he did struggle at the three-point line, as he was 2 for 5 at the three-point line, and that is not very Trae Young-like. But they did win Game 3 against the Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis had 26 points, 11 rebounds, and Trae Young had 20 points. For 11 assists. 26 points for Giannis. Can't read my own handwriting. But in other scores, the Lakers last night lost to the Kings 132 to, I believe I was supposed to write 130, but I wrote 132 down. I do know it was 130, I believe, or somewhere around that range. But Anthony Davis did have 30 points for the Lakers, so it's not like the Lakers didn't play bad. It's just one of those close games you'll see in the NBA that ended in overtime. But Malik Monk and Kevin Huerter had go-ahead threes in overtime to seal the deal for the Kings. And then I figured talk about the Cavs, with the supporting Sean and everything. The last game, they lost to the Pacers 125 to 113. Evan Mobley had 33 points that game. So once again, I mean, you have Evan Mobley that shot well, but 125 to 113. When you look at that score, not so well, but important games coming up here this week. Tonight, the Hawks will host the Minnesota Timberwolves, and then tomorrow, the Knicks will head to Cleveland, and then on Wednesday, the Hawks will host the Wizards, and then Cleveland will actually go to the Knicks at Madison Square Garden on Wednesday. So, that's all we got on the NBA. So you told me you're not much of a basketball guy.
I wish I was more of a basketball guy. I know it's popular around here, especially in the high school realm. But my wife roots for the Cavs. I'm a Cavs guy. Sean and I have been good friends for a while now. So anytime we go to a game, I'll make a sign for Sean. He probably laughs at me all the time. Sean's a great guy. I love the Cavs. So NBA, hard to believe it's in full swing already.
Good. And this is a good time for us because I can tell you what, in the summer, nothing to talk about. Yeah. Nothing to talk about. So
we're scraping along, especially in mid-July.
Yeah, so I'll have to make sure on days it's just baseball if Alex can't be on the show. Which honestly, if it's just baseball days, you might as well just take a vacation. Have you and our good friend Cody Duncan on to talk about.
Congrats
baseball.
to Cody, by the way, new head coach at Youngstown State Tennis.
Yes.
So hopefully he is able to right the ship there, and I'm sure he'll do great things with the Penguins.
Yes, absolutely.
Joe, is my mic still good? Is it still good? Okay.
So.
The light's real finicky on my mic pack. I can't tell if it's on half the time.
Yeah, technology.
Technology.
All right.
Football.
Oof.
I hate having to talk about losses, especially for our school. It sucks. Really sucks, but
It's nothing personal. We're just talking about
nothing
stats.
personal. We got to talk about it. Bro, went to Seton Hill. Honestly, Isaac said it before we started the show. The PSAC's kind of just a mess this year. There's not really, Seton Hill just beat IUP last week, so IUP is not really who they normally are. Slip is about the only team that's always who they are, pretty much. Matt was concussed. I believe he actually said it on Athlete Spotlight last week.
He did. So we can say that because he said it. So
Matt did not play again. We lost 38-28 at Seton Hill, so we scored a lot of points. Isaac played pretty well again. Completion percentage was low, 18 for 39, but he threw for 272, 3 touchdowns and a pick. So, he's playing pretty well this year. And again, a game like this, your defense allows 38 points. I didn't watch the game, but I would safely bet that pick is probably him trying to keep us in the game.
Yeah.
Forcing a ball, trying to keep us in the game. So, I could be wrong. It could have just been a bad pick, but I'm going to safely bet that it was probably him trying to keep us in the game. Again, this kind of middle stretch of the season, towards the end of the season, has just been a tough stretch for the defense. Jake Cruz, their quarterback, only threw 13 passes, but he completed 9 of them for 175 and a touchdown. The rushing numbers. Kyron Craggett, who also ran all over us last year, I believe, had 21 for 208 and 2 touchdowns. And then their second quarterback, Jaquan McGriff, had 14 for 90 and 2 touchdowns as well. So, running game for Seton Hill was absolutely absurd. Isaac did a pretty good job, threw 3 of our 4 touchdowns in the game. I'm not sure who had a rushing touchdown because I didn't write down any rushing stats because I think our top rusher dribbled at like 41 yards. Tough game, sitting at 2-7. Obviously, there's not really any sight of a postseason anymore. I forget who else we have to finish the season.
I think it's Slippery Rock and somebody else.
Yeah, Slippery Rock and someone else. I forget who the other team is, but I know we play Lock Haven. So I believe those are the last 2 to end the season because we played 11 game season. So tough stretch. Maybe at this point Slip's really good. Maybe pull off the upset. Finish 4-7, win the last 2. Either way, tough stretch. Sucks, but is what it is.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. NFL Steelers.
Oh boy.
Okay. I'm gonna say this. I watched the first half, and then I had to record a Going for Gold, which is my spinoff podcast where I just do interviews and everything.
Nice.
I don't know if the name sounds familiar. I had Joe Bad on. He's the all-time leading scorer at Greenville for basketball.
Yeah.
But correct me if I'm wrong. Did Kenny? He played the first half, but just did not come back out for the second.
I believe so.
So here's the crazy sequence that I couldn't even wrap my head around. And I asked John Leineck, our sports director at Erie News Now, who was at the game and covering it, what happened. So Kenny gets hurt in first half. He's out. It was late second quarter, 28, 27 seconds left to go. He goes to the locker room. And from what John described to me, he comes back out of the tunnel in the halftime break. He tells the guys he's good to go, puts his helmet on, starts to throw. Stops throwing, then Trubisky begins to throw. And the Steelers, as this is happening, are telling the press box media that Kenny is going to play. He'll be back in the second half.
Huh.
Okay. So Mitch starts the second half. He goes through a drive. Kenny puts his helmet back on the bench, and they rule him out. So you're right. It's a bizarre situation. I don't know if it was a situation where he threw or he thought he could throw and then decided that it was too painful for him. Remember, this is a rib injury, so breathing is a big part of this too. You have to be able to have the stamina to be able to play. But clearly either something wasn't right or there was an overestimation of his ability to be able to play in the second half. Now, the big question is for the Steelers, and I think we're starting to enter into this territory a little bit. I don't want to say that we're fully there, but I think there's got to be talk. I'm not sure that Kenny Pickett's the guy.
Had this conversation before.
And I know that a lot of concern has been had over Matt Canada, and I think deservedly so. I think the play calling has been pretty horrendous for the most part. But you look at the way that game started on Sunday, and first play from scrimmage, Kenny has a slant route to Deontay Johnson, 25 yards down the field. He's got 10 yards of separation, overthrows him. And then 4 3-and-outs succeed that afterwards. And you look at Kenny, and I think we can all agree that his fourth quarter numbers are great. But he wouldn't have to be that good in the fourth quarter if the first 3 quarters were nearly as good. And I think what you see is a guy who is concerned to throw the ball down the field, and we'll get to George Pickens in a second because I think he's going to be on his way out of town demanding a trade in about 2 weeks. But there's something about whether it's that Canada doesn't trust Kenny or Kenny doesn't trust himself. Almost like with Drew Aller. There's a lack of urgency to throw the ball down the field or even try to complete longer passes. And you see that not just in Kenny's throwing, but the routes that are run. It was pretty amazing to me when Mitch came in. And again, I'm watching this on TV just like the rest of you. John would be able to give you a better picture watching it in person. But the willingness for receivers, or specifically the offensive coordinator, I assume, calling the plays, to allow receivers to run longer routes with Mitch Trubisky in the game. The 2 big passes that Mitch threw, the sideline route to Deontay on the drive that scored the touchdown and the touchdown to George Pickens, those were both 15-plus yard throws down the field. You didn't see that with Kenny after the first incompletion of the game where he overthrew Deontay. So that, to me, is a concern. I don't want to say that Pittsburgh is at that point yet where they don't think Kenny's the guy, but I think it's pretty clear that there is a disconnect and a disbelief that Kenny Pickett can throw the ball down the field and move this offense.
And honestly, Drew Aller, honestly, that's honestly a decent comparison and good comparison because, like, not to say it's like the ship is falling, they need to switch now, but, like, it's definitely like, hey, there's concerns here, got to watch for it. Doesn't mean, like, they need to move on, doesn't mean that they can't come back from this. It's just okay, we need to start having a little bit of a talk, but it's just talk. But in my opinion, okay, I'm a Pitt guy. I think it's Matt Canada does not trust Kenny Pickett because if you look at the Ravens game-winning drive, Kenny called that audible and he threw it down the field to George Pickens. That was not Matt Canada's call. So I believe it is mostly, not to say it could be both, but I think it's more of Matt Canada does not trust Kenny. So, and I don't know do you listen to all of DK Pittsburgh Sports podcasts?
I'm not really a huge Pittsburgh podcast guy. I listen to some stuff.
Okay.
You keep up to date with that, the media, but for the most part, I don't tend to listen to stuff from Pittsburgh.
So I believe it was Dan Kovacevic. I know I mispronounced it, so I apologize. I believe he said something on the lines of, why don't you try doing, because it's clear Kenny could do well at the 2-minute drill.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's evident. Why don't you run plays like it's the 2-minute drill the entire game and see what happens?
Well, you can't.
You can't?
You can't. I mean, you look at the way that their schedule has pervaded itself this season. They've played a lot of really good, a lot of zone coverage defenses.
That is very true.
And I think if you try to run the 2-minute offense the entire game, you eliminate the run game, number one. And that's been another big problem for the Steelers. Is the running game has been terrible. Jaylen Warren did not play well yesterday. Najee Harris did not run the ball well yesterday. And I think part of that is a product of the Matt Canada offense. I think when defenses know Kenny's not throwing the ball down the field, you stack the box with 7 guys, and as a running game, you just can't get over the first line of defense.
Yeah.
Now, there's a problem to me, Mike, with running the 2-minute drill in the entire game because, again, it makes you predictable. If you eliminate the run game, you throw the ball down the field. I mean, think about this for a second. This is a good point for me to talk about George Pickens because this, to me, was the biggest concern that I had coming out of the game. George Pickens, I'm not trying to sit here and say is a top 5 wide receiver in football. I don't think he is. I think there's still plenty of guys out there better. But one catch for 22 yards and a touchdown. But when you watch him run routes, and you watch, if you're watching the game on TV and you don't look at the ball directly every single play, they don't have routes for Pickens.
No.
This is a straight go, fade, maybe occasionally a slant in the middle of the field. But I don't even know if they know what to do with Pickens. And the problem is with that, when you take away a guy like George, what you force the offense to do is you force them to run short of the sticks. Whether that's Deontay with his route running, but he can't run the deep ball. We haven't seen Calvin Austin get involved yet in the offense. We know Fryermuth's out for a bit. How about this? In terms of the Steelers' offensive production, they used their rookie tight end for 12 snaps yesterday, 12. And that, to me, is another concerning thing. So I don't know if they have the pieces to run the 2-minute offense consistently.
True.
You look at Kansas City, they do. They've got Mahomes. They've got guys who can run quickly down the field and can make those cut routes, whether it's Kelsey in the middle of the field, whether it's Sky Moore, whether it's Harmon. Reed has been starting to really get involved. So I don't think you have the pieces if you're the Pittsburgh offense, and I don't know if it would change anything because I don't know if Kenny's got that confidence yet.
And I monologue real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna make a take that I know many, many people are gonna hate, but it's the truth. You already drew the comparison, Isaac, between the way Penn State and the Steelers are running their offenses. Not saying a change needs to come, because it's not going to. There's just no position for it to happen right now. But Mike Tomlin and James Franklin are the same person. Great defensive-minded guys, locker room guys, can make you real good, real solid. You're going to be consistently decent every single year. But when the going gets tough, you have to play the good teams, you have to go on the road, you have to play and be that extra little bit to make it to a championship. Neither one will swallow their pride, and neither one will be able to get you over the hump. Mike Tomlin's Super Bowl victory was with Bill Cowher's football team. He lost to a 6-seed Green Bay Packers in the Super Bowl. They're both very good head coaches. They will make you good. You will be a consistently solid football team that plays average, slightly above average. But you will never be more.
Yeah.
It's an interesting point.
Yeah.
And I think this season you're seeing Penn State and the Steelers, albeit in two very different football worlds, having similar seasons.
Yeah.
I think the issue with the Steelers, and we've had this conversation on my show, we've had it on other shows. Is Pittsburgh ripe to fire Mike Tomlin? That's not happening.
No,
we just need to admit that right now. Mike Tomlin's not leaving Pittsburgh. They've had 3 coaches in 50 years. Art Rooney is not a guy to fire guys. But the concern that I have with the Steelers is, this is a team that I think really has an opportunity to do something crazy this year. You've got 2 home games with Tennessee and Green Bay coming up. This team could be 6-3. And that's the frustrating thing. When you look at the way that the Steelers have played this year, if their offense was capable of scoring even 24 points per game, they could arguably be right now 7-1. And I think, or 6-1, excuse me, with having played 7 games. But, there's a lot of argument to be made about offensive coaches in the NFL versus defensive coaches. And I think when you look at the offensive coaches, the one thing that you see is they're able to have that final drive. They can score points consistently at will.
Yep.
And Pittsburgh's got to make a decision. Do we bear down and tell ourselves that we're going to win 20-17 no matter what, and if a team starts scoring on us, we can't win? Or are we going to try to fix things? They're going to get a mini bye after the Tennessee game. They have an opportunity at the trade deadline if they want to do it to try to trade for an offensive piece. That would be a team in Pittsburgh that I really think should try to do it. But the season's not over. That's the funny thing. You're 4-3. You're still second into the division via the better divisional record at 2-0. You're going to get to the Cleveland game probably 6-3. It could be a game for first place in the AFC North. So this season is not nearly over, but the concerns are starting to mount, especially on offense. And now, 55 straight games, I believe, with less than 400 yards.
Not a single one under Matt Canada.
It's unacceptable, and I think you have to figure out a way to change it.
But, yeah, I agree. But to move quickly, I mean, Steelers just did not play well. Trevor Lawrence was 24 for 32 with 292 yards and a touchdown. Next game will be Thursday Night Football against the Tennessee Titans, and somebody here will be there. Yes.
And you may or may not see Derrick Henry.
You'll see most likely Will Levis.
Yes, please.
But it came out as we were recording. Minkah Fitzpatrick will be out that game, and Kenny Pickett will be a game-time decision. So Alex might be seeing Will Levis versus Mitch Trubisky.
Or Mason Rudolph.
Or Mason Rudolph.
Yeah.
If Kenny cannot go. So you got any other NFL stuff you want to talk about? Get through real quick.
Run through the other NFL stuff real quick.
Yeah, honestly, we can move the question topic to next week if you want to. It's up to you.
I have notes for it. We can do it.
Okay.
If we have time.
All right.
The pens is really short for me too.
Oh, that's right. We do have the Penguins.
The question topic intrigues me, by the way.
Yes, it's going to be a good one. All right, NFL stuff. Bills beat the Bucks at home in primetime 24-18. Thought this could have been another trap game where Josh Allen plays bad. Didn't end up happening. Jets win in OT at New York for the snooze fest of the week, 13-10. Well, actually, arguably the snooze fest of the week. We'll get to that in a second. The Eagles barely beat the Commanders again, 38-31 at Washington. The Cowboys annihilate another terrible offensive line, beat the Rams 43-20. Vikings handle the Packers. My take that they were going to be the third team in the division is starting to look bad. Titans hold on versus the Falcons off of DeAndre Hopkins' 3 touchdown catches, 28-23. Dolphins take care of business and swept the Pats this weekend, 31-17. Saints beat the Colts in the second highest scoring game of the weekend. I repeat, this: the Indianapolis Colts and the New Orleans Saints had the second highest scoring football game of the weekend. Saints won 38-27. Okay, other sleeper game. Panthers got their first win of the season, 15-13 against Houston. Seahawks hung out against the really freaking good Browns defense, 24-20. Bengals have handed the Niners their third straight loss. This one in San Francisco, 31-17. Brock Purdy threw 2 interceptions. Starting to get questions about that. Chiefs lost at Denver, 24-9. I'm going to just jump off the bridge. I don't know. Ravens slide by at Arizona, 31-24. They're really scrappy, by the way, if you guys couldn't tell by now. Chargers finally look competent against, go figure, one of the worst teams in pro football. Beat the Bears in primetime 30-13, and then obviously it is Monday, so the Raiders play at Detroit 8:15 tonight in Monday Night Football. So there you go. There's the NFL stuff. We already talked about the Steelers, so I didn't need to bring that one up. But
yeah. So do we want to get through rapid fire real quick, then talk about the question topic, and then end with pens? Because we're at like 55 right now.
I feel like we always end with rapid fire.
Okay.
So you want me to just run through pens real quick, and then we'll do question topic rapid fire?
Yeah.
Okay. Whatever. Pens lost 4-1 at Dallas versus Dallas Stars at home. Brian Rust had the only Pens goal. He has looked really good. The 10-year veteran who has been on the Pens his entire career looks great. Only 2 shutouts of the season so far, come against probably 2 of the top 5 shooting teams in the entire league. 4-0 win at home against the Avalanche. Riley Smith 2 goals. He looks really good as well, by the way. Crosby had a goal and Lars Eller had a goal. Jari went 31 for 31, which continues his Josh Allen level roller coaster of play. And then most recently Saturday night lost at home. This is a long home stretch for the Pens, by the way. 5-2 loss versus Ottawa. Crosby had a goal. Gensel had a goal. Jari got pulled after going 6 for 9. Magnus Hellberg finished the game and went 15 for 17. Put it shortly, this team needs to turn all of the shots on goal they have into goals because they're just flinging the puck at the net and not sinking them. Goalies are way too inconsistent. I think that's quite obvious. And, that's pretty much it. Home against the Ducks tonight, 7 o'clock. So, inevitably, you probably won't be able to watch the game because the NHL just isn't on television anymore. So.
Real quick before we get to the question topic, what's your number 1 issue with the Pens this
Power
year
play.
so far?
It's horrendous. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they're doing with Erik Karlsson. The fact that they're not putting him in the high slot, they're putting him on the wall. It makes no sense. The fact that Ricard Raquel's in the PP1, why Riley Smith hasn't gotten a chance, I don't understand. And now might be the time to take Geno Malkin and take him off the first power play unit. This is a guy who's only one-dimensional. He only shoots from the face-off dot and nowhere else. So the power play's a joke, and if you can't do well with special teams, you're not going to score goals 5-on-5. This is a team that needs to score at least a power play goal a night if they want to have a shot at winning hockey games. Not a great start for Pittsburgh. You wonder how much is left on Mike Sullivan's leash. I know Kyle Dubas is not a guy to fire coaches. However, it's concerning, especially with the offense that they should have. And the bottom six is still a little bit of a mess. Lars Eller has played well. Besides that, I have concerns. So it's early, still plenty of time, but not a good start for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, you really do wonder when Riley Smith starts to get more chances out there. He's really playing well. He can, he's starting to look like one of those guys that can really, you get him singled up, you get him a shot, he's going to sink it. He's, if he's one-on-one with the goalie, he's not missing. So,
right,
we'll see how it goes.
He needs to play.
He needs to play.
Yeah, play.
Line,
hey, just like you said with Kyle McCord, let the young man cook.
Yep. Precisely.
There we go. All right, question topic?
Yep.
Let's see how fast we get through this. So, I thought of this topic. Some people might think it's a stupid question, but it honestly, with the way the Jets have been playing, is it really? Is it really? And the question topic is, if by some chance Aaron Rodgers comes back this year from his injury, if Zach Wilson plays well, and you see the close games against the Chiefs, they beat the Bills, is there a quarterback competition?
No. Guys, we can't do this. We can't. Aaron Rodgers has been injured for 6 weeks, and he was literally dropping back and throwing the ball pregame last night. First of all, I don't know what ayahuasca-fueled freaking joyride he's on right now, but he's somehow throwing the football and looking like an NFL quarterback. Christ, his footwork right now is better than Josh Allen's his rookie year. I mean, I'm not kidding. We can't do this. Zach Wilson's been fine. He's completed sub 60% of his passes this year, which isn't great. He's thrown for 1,300 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 5 picks. He's fine. He's fine on a really good roster. I would love to come out here. When Aaron got hurt, I loved the way Zach Wilson was handling things on Hard Knocks, the way he looked like he matured as a player, as a man. He started to become, much more humble. He's, really learning from Aaron. It's very evident that Aaron's doing a great job at rubbing off on Zach Wilson, but it was not enough time. If Aaron Rodgers played this entire season, and then this happened next year, we might be having a totally different conversation. But Zach Wilson is still not there.
He's not ready.
He's not ready. The Jets have rattled off 3 straight, which is impressive. They're sitting at 4-3 right now, and they are very realistically in the playoff hunt. They are right there with everyone else that's looking for a spot. The Steelers, all these teams that are 3-4, 4-3, even some of the 2-5 teams have a chance right now. If you think about it, it's early enough in the season. If Rodgers is full go, I mean, this guy, he's recovering stupid fast. This is impossible the way he's doing it. I think someone took a freaking radiator belt or something and just threw it in the back of his heel. There's no way that his actual Achilles is healing this fast. But if he's ready to go and he can play, you have to play your more than likely first ballot Hall of Famer quarterback.
Yeah.
You have to play him. You look at the schedule. I mean, they play the Chargers, who apparently are a football team again. They played Chicago last night. At Vegas, whatever. They still have to play at Buffalo, home against Miami on a short week, by the way. That's a 5-day span from at Buffalo to home against Miami. That's brutal. Then you go home against Atlanta, who, now that they're playing the actual good quarterback in Taylor Heineke, look like a football team again as well. Home against Houston, they're a wild card. D'Amico Ryans is doing a great job in his first year there. At Miami, the second time you play them this season. Home against Washington, who's frisky. At Cleveland, who has one of the best defenses of the league. And then at New England, because Bill Belichick's fist is down your throat and you still can't get it out. this is a tough stretch for them. Some of these teams, Houston, Atlanta, Washington, even Vegas, people are looking past these teams, but they're all solid teams. Washington's really frisky. Again, New England has their number over the past 4 years or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
If Aaron Rodgers is ready to go, you have to play him. You're in the spot to make the playoffs right now. You're in a position to do it, and you have a really tough stretch to finish the season. So if he can play, he's got to play.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Alex. He's right. I do think if your Hall of Fame quarterback is ready to go, you got to play him. You got to play him. All right, so real quick, with you want to give any thoughts on that?
I agree.
Add on to
Aaron Rodgers, you have to play him.
Yeah. I like how I was just completely just trying to move on without asking.
He's healthy too.
Yeah.
He's an animal.
Yep. But real quick for rapid fire for our little league right now, we have 2 games that are tied right now. Tiger and EJ, Landon and Bryce, and then AJ defeated Emma, which if the Lions win tonight, it will be a final score of 10-9, but right now it's 9-8. And obviously, if you saw in the beginning of the show, I think you know who won that. Alex beat me 12-11, whatever. All right.
Yeah.
Week 9, EJ versus Bryce, Tiger versus myself, AJ versus Landon, and Alex versus Emma. So here's everybody's predictions right here. Okay. All right. So we'll see if Isaac can see if he gets a better score than Sean did. I'd have to look at.
Struggling right now in my picks for our NFL End Zone show for Erie News Now, so I'm a little concerned here.
What am I right now? Am I
sub 500?
Am I 6-2 right now? I think.
I'd have to look at the thing later.
Y'all couldn't tell. I'm kind of running the table right now.
Yeah, whatever. Sean had 10. He had 10.
Wow.
Sean had a good week.
Wait, who won? Cowboys or Chargers that week?
Cowboys.
Oh, so he had 11. There we go. I did not circle his name.
That was the week I almost had a perfect.
Sean's a smart cookie. It's going to be tough to upseed him here, but we'll see what happens.
So I put, just to remind myself, Sean had 11. All right. Titans and Steelers. I do think the Steelers will find a way to win this one, in my opinion.
The Steelers tend to win games against teams with bad offensive lines, so I'm going to agree.
I'll go Pittsburgh close. Not sure if Derrick Henry's a Titan by Thursday. Even if he is, I like Pittsburgh close.
Dolphins at the Chiefs. I'm going to go the Dolphins.
Ooh. The Chiefs looked human against the Broncos.
Broncos.
The Dolphins' defense is suspect, though, so I'm going to go with the Chiefs.
This is a no-brainer for me. Kansas City coming off a loss at home. Miami rolling. It's easy. Kansas City wins. I don't think the score's close. We looked at the way Miami played in Buffalo in cooler weather and not either in a dome or at home. They're going to struggle. Kansas City, great game plan. They win.
Yeah.
Vikings at Falcons. Kirk Cousins tore his Achilles, but that is still not going to be enough for the Falcons to win. I'm going to go with the Vikings.
Taylor Heineke show. I'm going with the Falcons.
I think this game could end in a tie, realistically.
Yeah.
Do you want to say tie? Do you want to say?
No, I don't, because that would be unfair. I'll go Falcons. They're home. I do think that Jordan Addison is becoming a great wide receiver, which is a concern for Justin Jefferson when he comes back. But I like the Falcons at home. Bijan gets back in the saddle of things.
All right.
John, baby.
All right. Cardinals at Browns. Browns. I'm not going to.
Yeah, I'm going to go Browns, too.
Browns, James Conner, who knows how healthy he is or if he's going to be able to play. His homecoming ruin. Cleveland wins.
Yeah.
Rams at Packers. The Packers are just terrible. I'm going with the Rams.
Yeah, I am, too, actually. The Packers' offensive play calling in the first half has been absolutely atrocious all year.
I'm going to go the upset on this one. I'm going to take Green Bay. I think Jordan Love gets back on track. That defense at home is something else, and the Rams cannot handle a front seven that has any semblance of success. Yeah, Rashawn Gary just re-signing with Green Bay just a couple of hours ago, so I like the Packers to win.
Commanders at the Patriots. I do think Sam Howell will have a very good game here, and I think it'll be enough to defeat the Patriots.
I just called them a frisky team, so I'm going to go with them, too.
I'll go against the grain again. New England's playing much better in the last few weeks.
True.
The concern with me is Bill Belichick takes away your best option. If Terry McLaurin can't catch the football, is Jahan Dotson good enough to be able to make plays? I don't think so. I think New England pulls off the upset.
Bears at the Saints. Ooh.
Bears are so bad. Saints.
Yeah. Yeah.
Saints are also the home team.
I am also going to go with the Saints.
Shout out Tyson Bagent, PSAC quarterback
Shepherd
of the
quarterback,
year,
yep.
and one of the best quarterbacks ever. And the PSAC did not look good last night. He's going to struggle again. Saints win at home.
Yep. Seahawks at the Ravens.
The Ravens look absolutely terrifying offensively.
Yeah, I'm going to go
go
Ravens.
with the Ravens.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Ravens too.
Yeah, I think Baltimore, until they meet a defense that's really competent, I know how well Seattle's been playing, but Baltimore at home, Lamar's getting better. I think the Ravens win.
Buccaneers at Texans. I'm going with the Bucks.
Ooh.
Yeah, because the Panthers did get their first win against the Texans. So I think the Bucks. I think Baker Mayfield will figure it out and get the victory
The
here.
Bucks defense is relatively old, and D'Amico Ryans is a pretty solid defensive head coach. I think Baker struggles against the Houston defense. I think C.J. Stroud has a bounce back game.
I saw Baker last week against Buffalo. He wasn't bad, but it's just not a guy who can get you through with 27 to 30 points. I'll take the Texans at home. C.J. Stroud at NRG Stadium has been playing well. I think Houston gets another win.
Colts at Panthers.
Colts offense is rolling. Like, they got two good running backs. Gardner Minshew's apparently playing really well, so I'm going to go Colts.
I'm also going to go Colts.
Man, I'm rolling with the home team this week. I think
Oh.
Carolina off a win. Bryce Young's got some confidence. And, Gardner Minshew struggles on the road for some reason, especially in outdoor, cold environments. I'm not saying it's going to be chilly in Carolina, but I think the Panthers can pull this off, specifically with the way they've been able to play defense. Although I will tell you, if Brian Burns is traded by the end of the trade deadline, I may think differently, but I'll take Carolina.
Giants at Raiders.
I'll go Raiders.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I think they have enough weapons to be able to get them over the hump, and the Giants can't score points.
All right. Here's three good games, in my opinion, coming up here. Cowboys at Eagles. I think the Eagles will beat the Cowboys. I think it's going to be one of those very stupid Cowboys losses, and the Eagles will get it done in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I think the Eagles have been playing well enough. I think they can get it done at home.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go Philly too. Yeah, I think home field advantage in this one. Eagles win.
I think the Philly Cowboys thing is another thing like last year where both teams get their home victory and they split the series. So yeah.
I like how I didn't even let you finish. I just started writing the Eagles.
Read my mind.
Yeah. Bills at Bengals. Joe Burrow played very well last game. I think he will play well again against Buffalo in Cincinnati. So I'm gonna go with the Bengals.
Yeah, especially with Buffalo having a pretty mutilated defense at this point in the season. Again, they fail to avoid the injury bug. I think Cincinnati probably wins that.
This is an emotional game. DeMar Hamlin returning. I don't
That's
know if
right.
he's going to be active. I was there last year when that entire thing occurred. It
Oh,
was
wow.
a really scary scene, a sad scene. And I think Buffalo plays off that emotion. Josh Allen's throwing the ball really well. They got Khalil Shakir involved, Dalton Kincaid involved. I'll take the Bills on the road. I think they have to win the game. If they want to keep alive in the division, I think they win the game on the road.
There you go.
And then the last one, Chargers at the Jets.
This is actually hard.
Yeah.
This is genuinely difficult, and not for any reason related to Justin Herbert whatsoever. This is all Chargers coaching staff. I think Brandon Staley's in this game, quite frankly, and I think the Jets win.
It's interesting you say that because when I think of Chargers games, I look at the opponent and I say, okay, is it realistic that this game will come down to the last 2 minutes? And if the answer is yes, I can't pick them. I'll take the Jets. I'll take the Jets. They've come down to the fourth quarter in the last two games. They beat the Eagles. They go into the bye, and then they win another game against the Giants close. Can't trust Staley in big games. I'll take New York.
I like Justin Herbert. But Isaac and Alex are right. You cannot trust Brandon Staley, and we despise Brandon Staley on this show. So I will also go with the Jets. And then the bye week this week, Jacksonville, San Francisco, Detroit, and we will not be picking the Denver Broncos in the bye week because we never do. All right. Right now, we're going to take it to something we've already filmed this past Friday, and that is our athlete spotlight with the goalie for the Edinboro girls soccer team, Kaylee Lauriel. So you want to throw the paper to? Yeah, we do the paper toss from PTI.
Oh,
so,
gotcha.
Yeah, and Sean was doing the imaginary flag thing.
Nice,
So if you want to do that
Hang
with
on,
Sean.
I'll take your pencil here. All right, we're out of time. Here we go, Alex.
Here we go.
What do you say? What do you say?
Athlete Spotlight.
I'm going to talk a little slower today because apparently I can't talk during this segment. Episode 2 of Athlete Spotlight, welcoming the starting goalie for the Boro women's soccer team, Kaylee Lauriel.
Quit it.
Yeah, thanks for coming on
Thanks for having me.
episode 2. But just like the first episode, I figured go through your bio and then start with questions. So high school. I already forget how you pronounce your high school name.
Wycliffe.
Wycliffe, all right. Yeah, she literally told me that before.
Like 5 minutes ago.
Literally 5 minutes ago, and I completely forgot how you say it. So 2-time team MVP and 2-time first team all-conference in high school. And then you came to Edinboro, obviously. Why else would we be here if she didn't go to Edinboro? In 2021, appeared in 2 games and started 1. Had total of 8 saves, played a total of 164 minutes, and an Edinboro Scholar athlete. And then 2022, started all 18 games on net, made 79 saves, posted a .752 save percentage, 1.45 goal against average record, and 4 shutouts. Very, very, very impressive. They did not have anything or at least I didn't see anything from this year. But yeah, I guess starting off question-wise, I mean, talk about the process of just becoming a goalie and just the hard work you have to put in to just to maintain being a goalie all year, I guess. I worded that question horribly.
You're fine. So like when you're like 5 years old, everybody kind of like takes turn being a goalie because that's like the crappiest position at that point. You know, like nobody's good at it.
It's like Pee Wee football. Everyone's an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
In baseball and Little League, it's the outfield.
Yeah. Yeah. Like nobody wants to be a goalie. It's like you stand there the whole time. You're in like they give you like the biggest oversized shirt to wear. It would like fall to my knees every game. And I played co-ed too, so it was like me and co-ed meaning I was like the only girl on the team. So it's just like 6 and 7-year-old boys like sprinting at me, like kicking balls at me. And I guess I was like better than the other 6-year-olds, you know. And I didn't like running. So it was like kind of a win-win. So like they kept me in there, and then like growing up, like I didn't like running. So then I just like kept. So I was like, okay, like I'll be the goalie, and it was just kind of like I didn't get serious about it until like end of middle school, and that's when you kind of have to like train yourself to like not be scared of a ball being like kicked at your face and actually like going to meet it, you know. So then at that point, it's like kind of like getting over yourself, like. Who cares if it hurts a little?
Right, yeah.
And it's also like, it's ego too, you know? Like, you get to do like the coolest stuff, you know? And if you do it and it works, like, you're a hero, you know? So like, you get good because you want to be the hero.
Right.
So it's like that. And then like you get older and like, I'm doing like training camps like 4 times a week for like an hour and a half every day, stuff like that. It's hard work, and there would be some times where like, you can't move the next day. Because it's like a lot of hitting the ground, like your legs are all torn up from turf. Yeah. So I mean, it's definitely like I think it's worth it in the end, but it's like not for everyone.
Yeah, it's tough too. It's pretty biased stats wise.
Yeah.
You allow 3 or 4 goals, no one's gonna look at the fact that your team had like 15 shots on goal. Meanwhile, you got like 35 shots at you. Happens with the Pens a lot. We see it. They'll shoot 35 times a game and get 1-2 goals.
Yeah.
So. That's the tough part. So you were talking about it as a kid, just kind of like it's just like basically you're just standing there.
Yeah.
Just kind of. But like nowadays, obviously, like you're playing at the collegiate level, and even in high school, like what are you thinking? Like when the ball is down the field, when you're like standing there,
like coming at me or away?
Like when it's away, yeah. Whenever you're just like.
Please score. Please, and like goalies usually have to be one of the most vocal people on the field. Not that like I'm 100 yards away when they're all the way up there. So like not that they can hear me all the time, but like. You're yelling like who's open, like what pass to make, and like most of the time just begging, like please score, please score. And it's like not like I can do that when like I can't do that. You know?
Yeah.
So like just like crossing my fingers and hoping that it doesn't come back.
Fair, yeah. So you mentioned it a little bit. Just a little more depth about like what was it like playing the co-ed, like just or like how did that like impact like your game?
I mean, I
essentially?
think it made me a little bit braver because playing co-ed, you're either going to meet boys who like hate that you're a girl and will like punish you for it.
I was gonna say 6-year-old boys especially
Yeah.
are particularly brutal.
So like they'll either like stop aiming for the goal and start aiming for you, or like
Okay.
they're not going to want to like they don't want to hurt you.
Right,
know?
yeah,
So
they're
that's,
either
like,
gonna go way too hard or they're gonna like
yeah,
take
there was
it
no in
easy on you.
between.
Yeah.
And then like when you get older and now you're playing like 12-year-old boys, then you start getting the guys who really just do hate you. You know?
God.
Yeah.
So it like definitely made me a little bit braver, and it made me, I guess, like meaner. You know, like I wasn't gonna like sit there and take it. So I'm like,
yeah.
I'm like giving as good as I'm getting, and like I got carded a bunch. Especially like indoor soccer, that was like absolutely brutal. But like I gave as good as I got, and I think it like then when I was playing with like all girls, I was like the meanest person on the field because
Yeah.
I was used to people having like a vendetta specifically against me. You know.
Yeah. No, that's-
And I mean, I think it also kind of made me realize like there was no boy out there that was better than me at that age.
Yeah.
You know, like we went like not to brag, not to toot my own horn, but like
Nah,
rec
that dog
12
is-
league,
yeah.
like we ran it. You know, like I was like championship team every time. You know, so like there was no boy out there that was better than me when I was 12. I don't think that like I just think that it made me a better player and just like a lot more physical, I think.
yeah.
Yeah, so obviously, for the amount of time you've been here, you've definitely have developed being a team leader and all that. But for girls coming in for their freshman year, what advice would you give them to if their main goal is to just try to play all 4 years?
I mean, I guess just don't be afraid of hard work. You know, like
Yeah.
being a goalie, we would have like a goalie coach that would help us out. You know, so it was being willing to like take away some of your free time and like put some more time on the field. You know, and it's just like put in the extra touches, put in the extra work, talk to your coaches even when you think it's silly. Like, what did I do wrong? What should I have done? What can I do? And it's also just challenging yourself. Like, I don't want it. I don't like it when the best girl, like the best forward on the team, comes and shoots on me. But at the same time, like I know that's what I need to get better.
Yeah.
You know, so like put yourself up against girls who are probably like seniors when you're a freshman. Like, elevate yourself.
It's a mentally tough sport.
Oh yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, it is, and also too, like to see how you're doing. If you're like afraid to ask, like I know when I used to play baseball, I used to always be scared to ask the coach, like because I didn't want to say anything that would like upset him to like knock me down like the chart. But if you don't ask, how do you know?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the
This
really,
goes for any athlete too. Just pay
Yeah.
attention in the film room.
yeah.
Put in the time. I always, especially my senior year, I spent hours every day watching film. If you know, if you're not going to ask questions, at least pay attention in the film room. You watch your film, watch yourself, watch what you can do better.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, which one we got? Okay, here we go. So, obviously, you're the same age as us. You're a junior. Got 1 year left. What goals do you still have?
We do like, well, I want to make playoffs. Okay, right now we're
Yeah.
we're like in the 5th spot, and the top 4 teams will go to the playoffs, and it's like we have 3 games left. So it's kind of coming down to like we have to at least win 2 games, but other people have to lose. You know, so it sucks like being dependent on other people's games.
tough.
That
Yep.
sucks.
You know, and we went to playoffs when I was a freshman, but I didn't play there. So like I want to play and like I want to experience like that type of pressure. You know.
Yeah.
And I want to do the same thing next year. I want to have like a winning season. I want to have more than like 4 or 5 shutouts.
Yeah.
Just stuff like I want to have.
Which is still stupid.
For sure.
I mean, you guys play like what, 18 games?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, last year you had 4 shutouts. That's near a quarter of the games you shut another team out. That's crazy.
But you know, it's just like I want like better personal stats. I want like better save percentages. And I don't know. I just want like I want the team to look up to me and just to like feel safe with me back there. That like if
Yep.
someone does make a mistake on the back line, that like it will be okay. You know.
We saw Flurry Bill. That's the closest. Hockey's the closest thing I can draw comparisons to. We see goalies do that all the time in hockey too. You know, I mean, Pens, God help us, have messed up so many times in their own zone.
Don't even why would you remind me of that? This guy. But yeah, before we go on to rapid fire, now, I'm aware that you have a dog that you love very much.
I do.
So would you like to tell the viewers about your dog?
Yes. Okay. So she's a Cane Corso, which is an Italian.
Oof.
She's an Italian Mastiff, so she's a big girl. Her name is Bonnie, but we all call her Bobo. We adopted her, and when we rescued her, they did like a house visit. It was like very official because she had been in foster care like the longest of any of their dogs. It was over a year. So they were like just kind of begging for someone to take her. And they came and they did a house visit. They sat us down and they said, she's anywhere between 3 and 9. And immediately I'm getting a text from my mom under the table and it's like, we are not getting a 9-year-old dog.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, she doesn't look 9, you know, so that was like 4 years ago. So she can be like 11
or
yeah.
13.
Yeah, she can be
anywhere in
ancient
that range.
but so she's like old now and she's grumpy. And she's got, like, shelter dogs have baggage, you know. She doesn't really like other dogs too much, but that's fine. We can be like a 1-dog household. But she is just, like, the sweetest little thing. I don't, like, she's just my baby. I don't know. Like, she just, like, she has these big brown eyes that look so sad all the time. But, like, she's just always looking at you, you know. And, like, she had such a hard life that we're like, you can have the leftovers, you know, like you can eat from the table. She has a spot on the couch. She's so like fussy. Like if you sleep, like we have a couch that kind of like goes like this. And if you're
like a sectional.
Yeah, like where she is on her couch. If you're sitting there, she'll stand in front of you and she'll like bark and bark and bark at you. And then she'll go over to my dad and she'll bark at my dad. And then my dad goes, you get up.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you get up, she's taking your spot. You know,
That's
like
hilarious.
she sleeps on the bed. My parents just got a king size bed, and it's like it's for Bonnie. It wasn't for them. It's for Bobo. She has so much personality. She is just so fun and so cute. If anything were to happen to her, I would you would never see me again. It's like that type of like, you know, like we're like that. You know, we're in there. And if anyone wants pictures, please contact me. I will send you pictures of my dog.
She'll be tagged on the post on Instagram.
Please hit me
the
up.
show goes up.
There you go. There we go. Yeah, I had a dog a few years ago, unfortunately, passed away. But I have a cat, unfortunately, and I say unfortunately, and Alex also has a cat.
I do have a cat.
So unfortunately, you're on a show with 2 people that have cats.
I pet a cat yesterday.
I have dogs.
I feel like I'm basically a cat person.
I have 2 dogs. My dad does.
Yeah, I mean,
my dogs are fat.
Yeah.
I mean, no matter what, I mean, eventually for some reason, my pets just hate me.
Yeah.
So, and I might be getting another dog pretty soon. So, give or take, probably 3 months before my new dog hates me. So, there we go. But yeah, so now it's time for good old rapid fire, which is what we did with Matt Carlisle. Once again, just reminder. So this is just sports related, but also like other things also related and that aren't related to sports. So yeah, so here we go. Favorite sport to play?
Soccer.
Coke or Pepsi?
Dr. Pepper.
There you
go. Favorite sport to watch?
Volleyball.
Oh, wow. Favorite vacation spot?
We went to Punta Cana once, and that was really cool.
Yeah.
Go-to pregame song?
Molly Cyrus. You got to look that one up. Molly Cyrus.
Favorite food?
Chicken.
Straight up.
There we go. All right, this question is going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
Other than yourself, favorite Edinboro girls soccer player?
I didn't even know you had that one in there.
What is that?
I don't know. Who's your favorite?
We have this one freshman named Bailey. She is just the cutest little thing. She is the cutest little thing. She is so sweet and she is so funny. Bailey, if you're watching this, I love you.
Shout out, Bailey.
I love you.
Shout out, Bailey. Favorite movie of all time?
Of all time? Pride and Prejudice, 2005.
good one.
Favorite TV show of all time?
Psych.
Ooh. Okay.
All right. So, you mentioned that you used to play softball.
Yeah.
So, favorite position to play in softball?
Third base.
Favorite color?
Red.
And the last question. This question might sound familiar to you. Would you rather fight a chicken every time you got in your car, or fight one gorilla once a year, but you have a sword to defend yourself?
Gorilla. Absolutely.
You're taking ones with a gorilla?
How many times do you get in your car? How many times do you get in your car?
I can break a chicken's neck.
But
pretty
how?
fast.
Like,
I ain't
because then
taking
at that point, hear me out. You have to like prepare. You have to be like, give yourself like, okay, like I need 10 minutes to fight a chicken.
Okay.
Do you bring a change of clothes? What if the chicken gets like a lucky scratch? What then? Then now you're all disheveled. What if you were coming here and the chicken got you in the face? What then? At least with a gorilla.
I have a real interesting story for the show that day.
At least like for the
boy.
gorilla, like I have a sword, and gorillas are only really like aggressive if you're in their natural habitat. I'm not gonna be in a gorilla's natural habitat, okay? Like
Okay.
I just feel like if I have a sword and enough confidence and enough delusion, I'll be okay.
So how you going at it? You going at it like elegant, like a samurai? You just going like Roman gladiator, just like shield, sword, just like bashing it, just going in. Like you just.
No finesse, I don't think.
No finesse.
No
all
finesse.
power.
Yeah, all power.
Just like you gotta fight fire with fire. That's the way the gorilla is gonna be.
I think so, and like I don't know, like I feel like a gorilla isn't gonna want to like I don't know. I feel like if you're a gorilla and you get stabbed, I'm done.
Yeah. Quote of the week: if you're a gorilla and you get stabbed, you're probably done.
Good. Okay, we got a little time. Do you want to give a little context to what that question was about?
I was gonna say, where in God?
There's a reason.
that question
There's a reason. There's a reason. So go ahead.
It was like 2 springs ago. Mikey and I were in a class together. It was in the studio, and we had to like interview each other. And that was like my final question for him, and it was like a total blindside. I didn't tell him that it was coming.
That is so funny.
And like the whole class was in that back room and just kind of like watching Mikey like think about it.
I was like,
I think it was Apollo 11 or something. Everyone's sitting there just.
So this is my big moment.
And he chose the chicken.
I did choose the chicken. Now I regret it. But yeah, that is all the time we have for this week's Athlete Spotlight and, well, Boro Tailgate Talk. This is for, what, episode 59?
59.
We're almost at 60.
Holy cow, we're gonna be at 100 before we know it. This is
Good
crazy.
Lord. But yeah, Kaylee, thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
And we will see everybody next week.
Good night, America.
Almost hit the camera.